Today, we are cracking the code on something I think is a truly universal experience: the sheer, overwhelming frustration of learning English.
hmm
I mean, if you have ever felt just paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake, or if listening feels like you're trying to decipher a radio signal underwater, you are absolutely not alone.
That feeling is so common, that sense of hitting a plateau or, feeling like you're just running on a linguistic treadmill and getting nowhere.
Right.
And the sources we've gathered for this, they all stress that this struggle is,
Right.
it's normal. It's part of the process. They're incredibly encouraging, but our mission here isn't just to say, hey, it's okay.
No.
We're here to extract the actionable gold. The precise strategies that move you past that beginner paralysis and actually start building real measurable progress. Things like speaking confidence, vocabulary stickiness, and of course that constant grammar confusion.
Yeah, we're really trying to bypass the generic advice. I mean, you already know you need to study. We're looking for those simple but repeatable insights, the high impact shifts in your approach that the research really points to. So let's start with, I think, the largest mental hurdle mentioned in the sources: the sheer terror of speaking.
It's the moment of truth, isn't it?
It really is.
As soon as you open your mouth, your brain just seems to scream, wait, you have to be perfect. And this paralysis, this perfectionism, it's the number one self-imposed barrier to fluency.
Self imposed. That's the key phrase.
It is. The sources are so clear that before any technical tips can work, you have to internalize this mindset shift. Communication is the goal, not flawless pronunciation.
And to make that psychological jump a bit easier, the sources dive into some really specific initial struggles.
Mm.
I was fascinated by the example one learner gave about trying to master the th sound.
Yes, that is a fantastic entry point because the
Ugh.
th sound, just doesn't exist in so many languages.
Right, your mouth doesn't know what to do.
It's physically unfamiliar. And the source details how this learner used a mirror, a really tactile visual learning approach, just to observe and correct the physical placement of their tongue. It might sound a little silly, but it illustrates that pronunciation isn't just listening. It's training a muscle.
So once we accept that mistakes are just, as the material puts it, opportunities to learn and not some reflection of failure, what is the single most actionable zero stakes tip the sources suggest for just forcing yourself to speak when no one else is around?
Well, the lowest stakes practice environment is your own head, followed very closely by your own phone's voice recorder.
Okay.
The sources strongly advocate for this idea of internal dialogue, so describing your surroundings, narrating your actions, maybe reviewing your day entirely in English. You could do this driving, cooking, walking.
So you're turning a totally mundane task into active practice, and I'm guessing the recording element is key here.
It's so key. By recording yourself, you shift from just, passive speaking to active self-correction. You actually hear the awkwardness, the pausing, the pronunciation errors that you simply miss in the moment.
It's like your phone becomes a portable, personalized language lab.
Exactly. And then, if you feel ready for two-way communication but without the high pressure of a classroom, the sources highly recommend finding online language exchange partners. They offer this great analogy calling it like a pen pal, but for speaking.
I love that.
Because the stakes are low, the goals are mutually understood, and that pressure to be perfect is just, it's immediately lessened.
Okay, so once we sort of conquer that internal fear of speaking, the next great barrier is just understanding what's being said to you. For so many learners, listening comprehension is a nightmare. It feels like English speakers are, I don't know, singing or blurring all their words together.
A complete waterfall of sounds, as one source put it.
Yes, exactly that.
And that feeling is incredibly common, and it often leads to that universal beginner strategy.
Just,
Nodding and smiling politely to hide the fact you have no idea what's going on.
we've all been there.
We all have. So the sources provide a really structured way to dismantle that waterfall feeling, and it starts with the principle that you have to learn to walk before you can run.
How slow are we talking?
Very slow. Like start with materials that are actually designed for children. Simple songs, clear storybooks, materials where the pace is managed and the vocabulary is really concrete.
Okay.
The goal here is to treat those words like building blocks, focusing on clear, defined sounds, before you ever encounter the complex reductions and contractions that native speakers use all the time.
And this leads us to the strategic use of subtitles, which isn't just about turning them on. The sources outline a very deliberate two-step process.
Correct. A very deliberate one. So
Yeah.
the first step is to watch the content with subtitles in your native language.
Okay, that feels counterintuitive.
It does, but it allows your brain to absorb the overall plot and context without the stress of decoding English at the same time. The cognitive mechanism here is crucial. You remove the comprehension load, which frees up your mental resources to focus purely on the sound of the English dialogue itself.
Ah, I see. Then you watch the same segment again right away, but you switch to English subtitles.
And now your brain can connect the sound it just heard, which is already linked to a known plot point in your head, directly to the written English word. This simultaneous auditory and visual reinforcement is just incredibly powerful for cementing that sound-to-script mapping.
This feeds directly into pronunciation, which I think is important to separate from just speaking. This is about making the correct sound distinction, and the sources highlight those notorious minimal pairs.
Right, the difference between, say, sheep and ship.
The classic example.
It is, because getting that vowel sound wrong leads to an entirely different meaning. Other common challenges are, the V versus W sounds, or distinguishing L from R, depending on a learner's native language.
So what's the concrete advice here beyond just listening more?
Imitation is everything. The sources encourage you to literally imitate native speakers, like a parrot. Use online dictionaries that provide audio, and then just repeat the word immediately. But the most valuable technique is the physical training we talked about.
Recording yourself again.
Recording yourself and then comparing your voice to the native audio, really focusing on the differences.
And I love that tip about exaggeration.
Yes, don't be afraid to overpronounce. Exaggerate the vowel sounds, stretch your mouth muscles. You are physically training your tongue and mouth to adopt these new shapes. And like any muscle training, you sometimes have to push past the comfortable limits at first to build strength and accuracy.
Okay, let's move on to the two big language monsters that cause the most, I guess, academic anxiety. Vocabulary and grammar. Vocabulary often feels like this endless list, and the frustration is universal. You learn a word one day, and the next, it's just
Poof, gone from my memory.
poof, gone from my memory. Exactly.
And that is the tragedy of passive learning. I mean, simply reading a definition once is passive. The sources make it so clear. The secret to high retention is immediate, active use and repetition that's tied to meaningful context.
So if you learn the word ambitious, you don't just write it down. You immediately write a sentence about your own life, linking it to a personal memory or a goal, like, I am ambitious about my career change.
Precisely. And this is where we need to move beyond just simple flashcards. Flashcards are useful, but the sources emphasize they have to be used for active recall and spaced repetition, revisiting the card multiple times over increasing intervals of time.
And not just the word by itself.
No, never. Don't learn isolated words. Learn words in collocations, in sentences, and common phrases to understand how the word works naturally with other words.
That moves us logically to grammar, which is the monster with 1,000 rules and it feels like a million exceptions. It's the sheer volume of verb tenses and irregularities that can make any learner feel defeated.
The approach to grammar really needs to be one of triage. Don't start by trying to memorize every single exception. The sources advise focusing intensely on the main ideas and the core function of structures first. Like, what is the fundamental purpose of the past simple?
To talk about finished actions at a specific time.
That's it. You build the framework before you start adding all the complex decoration.
Right.
And the most natural way to absorb that complexity is through, well, osmosis. It's extensive reading. When you read books, articles, news in English, you just see the grammar used in action over and over again. Your brain starts to absorb the patterns and sentence structures without that constant, draining mental effort of reciting a rule.
And the sources had a specific warning about study materials here, didn't they?
They did. Avoid the big, heavy ones.
Yeah.
Find simple, focused grammar guides that prioritize clear explanations and dozens of examples over complex, dense terminology. The goal is application, not, academic mastery of linguistic terms.
So we've covered the technical challenges, but I think the biggest obstacle to long-term success is just maintaining momentum. We all have those days where we feel like giving up, feeling stuck like a car in the mud.
And when motivation dips, which it inevitably will, the sources advise learners to immediately connect back to their internal drive. You need to remember your why.
Your reason for starting.
Exactly.
Huh.
Was it to travel, to advance your career, to finally watch your favorite movies without subtitles? That clear purpose is your fuel.
And to combat that feeling of stagnation, the advice is really simple. Set small, achievable goals.
Yes, not these monumental, vague goals like I will be fluent. Instead, make it specific and small. I will learn 5 new words this week and use them in a conversation, or I will understand the chorus of one new song. Celebrating these small wins, actually saying, hey, I understood that simple sentence, builds crucial confidence and ensures you stay committed long term.
But the most common lament we probably all hear is the time crunch. I just don't have enough time to study.
The sources challenge that idea forcefully. They argue that everyone has time, provided they stop trying to find time for English and start integrating English into their existing routine. Those little 10 or 15-minute pockets of downtime, they accumulate into hours of practice over months.
So give us the integration specifics. What does that look like?
Okay, so listen to an English podcast during your commute or while you're doing chores. Watch an English recipe video while you're cooking. Stream music with English lyrics while you're exercising. These are all multitasking moments where your brain is still getting that low-stakes exposure.
And the single most effective, high-impact integration tip is probably changing your phone or your computer language to English.
It is the ultimate passive practice. You are forced to interact with English vocabulary every single time you check the weather or open an app. It integrates the language constantly, subtly, without requiring any dedicated study hours.
This integration doesn't mean instant results, though, which I guess brings us to the issue of impatience and discouragement.
And patience is absolutely non-negotiable. The sources use this beautiful analogy. Learning English is like planting a tree. It grows slowly, requires consistent daily watering, and you won't see a dramatic change every single morning. The progress is happening, but it's beneath the surface, and it requires faith and consistency.
That's why tracking progress is so important. Keeping a simple notebook or a journal where you write down specific words or structures you've mastered. You need that physical evidence to look back on during those discouraging moments and prove to yourself how far you've actually come.
And finally, we have to revisit the mindset around mistakes. The sources urge learners to adopt the persistence of a baby, learning to walk. You fall down, you get up, and you try again. If you can change your view of mistakes, if you can see them as friends who are simply showing you what to study next, you remove the entire emotional barrier to speaking and learning.
So this has really been a deep dive into shifting your entire approach. Starting slow with strategic listening, ensuring active recall for vocabulary, focusing on the core purpose of grammar, and integrating English into the subtle corners of your daily routine. And the central, empowering message really remains. Your struggle is normal, and because your journey is unique, don't compare yourself to others.
Right. And the sources make it so clear that the most important step is simply taking action right now. We so often wait for the perfect moment, to feel ready or to have a dedicated hour free to study. But given all the advice we've covered on immediate integration and accepting that everyone makes mistakes, we want to leave you with a question.
What is the single lowest stakes thing? Be it changing your phone language, listening to one song, or just describing the next object you touch in English that you could do immediately in the next 5 minutes to integrate English into your life right now. That small action isn't just practice. That is the very first step of your new progress.